Om yo brahmanam vidadhati purvam yo vai vedascha prahinoti tasmai tamhadevam atma buddhi prakasham mumukshuru vai sharanamaham prapadye nishkalam nishkriyam shantam niravadyam niranjanam amritasya param setum dagadhendhanamivanalam Om asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya aviravirmayedhi rudrayatte dakshinam mukham te namam pahi nityam Om shanti 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 Om Shakti Samudra Samuthatarangam Darshita Prema Vijrumbhitarangam Samshaya Rakshasa Nasha Mahastram Yami Gurum Sharanam Bhava Vaidyam Advaya Tattva Samahita Chittam Projvala Bhakti Patavrita Vrittam Karma Kalevaram Adbhuta Cheshtam Yami Gurum Sharanam Bhava Vaidyam Naradeva Deva Jaya Jaya Naradeva Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. My very respectful salutations to all the revered monks present here and my dear Brahmachari brothers. Today is a very joyful day. We have been discussing the whole day the personality of Sri Krishna, who was Ananda Ghana Murti and Prema Ghana Murti. He was the embodiment of joy, Ananda, and embodiment of Prema or love. Swami Tapasyanji once told me that Sri Krishna's personality in the Bhagavata and the Mahabharata comes very close to the personality of Swami Vivekananda. It appeared very strange to me at that time because we normally compare Sri Krishna with Sri Ramakrishna, and Ramakrishna himself having said, as you know, he who was Rama, he who was Krishna is now Ramakrishna in this body. Very interestingly, later on I heard from Swami Suhitanandaji that Swami Premeshanandaji also used to compare the Krishna's personality with that of Swami Vivekananda, perhaps mainly because of the variety. Just now, Bodhisattva was talking about the variety of Sri Krishna's personality, how he had so many different facets in his personality, and therefore his personality admitting of such immense variety, coupled with such profundity, would naturally admit of what we normally call as contradictions from our limited intelligence. If you read the Bhagavad Gita carefully and compare it with Swami Vivekananda's complete words, you will see a striking resemblance. His ideas keep changing every chapter, with the result that even such an extraordinary spiritual genius and a Nararishi like Arjuna, at every point he says, "You are confusing me. Wait. Just now you said that the jnana is so superior, and why are you pushing me to this terrible karma? Tatkam karmani khore mam niyojasi Keshava." Then he gives him a long discourse on how we should work and so on, the Karma Yoga, as you know. Then again he is confused in the beginning of 4th chapter, beginning of 5th chapter, till at the beginning of the 10th chapter he says, "Mohoyam vigato mama," having heard your teachings, my moha is gone. Look at the text, original text. One advice which I can give you is to recall to memory the great saying of Swami Brahmanandaji, Raja Maharaj, who said, don't go initially to the bhashyas and the tikas and the commentaries. go to the text of the Bhagavad Gita. It's a very simple Sanskrit with a reasonably good school level knowledge of Sanskrit. You should be able to crack the original. Read the text. Of course, memorizing is absolutely necessary. These 2 years in the training center should be devoted at least to the memorization of the Gita upside down, beginning to end and end to beginning. If you can do that, you can go to sleep the rest of your life. The Bhagavad Gita and the Kathopanishad. This is what we learn from our elders. And think of the text. Meditating is a deeper word. Just think of it, reflect upon it. Think of the meaning, find connections. And you will find that every verse reveals to you newer and newer meanings as you go on and on in your life. Suddenly you wake up in the morning as a text forces itself upon you from the unconscious, and a newer light comes to you. In the Bhagavad Gita you can see the words used. He says, Mohoyam vigato mama. In the middle of the 18 chapters. If moha is gone, why did the Bhagavan have to go for 7 more chapters? He is continuing the teaching. If the moha had already gone, there was no necessity for further teaching, which means that which is vigata will be agata also. Vigata means it has gone in a special way, but that which is gone is not destroyed. Somehow Arjuna is again possessed with some kind of a moha in a different form. At the end of the last chapter, when he finally accepts Sri Krishna's verdict and his teachings, he says, Nashto moha smritir labdha tvat prasadan mayachyuta. Look at the word used by the Bhagavan Vyasa. Nashto moha, my moha, which was vigata in the middle, not fully destroyed, is finally destroyed, nashto moha. That which is nashta cannot come back again. These are some very small insights which you can find in the Bhagavad Gita and the original text. Go with the text. The difficulty with the great Bhashakaras, as Tapasanji always used to point out to us, is they are like great barristers. You know, barristers and lawyers, very powerful lawyers in the Supreme Court and High Court. They have such gigantic intellect, they can take any text and interpret it in a particular way which will be most convincing to anybody. If you look at Shankara's Purva-paksha, for example, Shankaracharya, when he goes for the Purva-paksha, you'll be totally convinced all his arguments are absolutely correct. But he is talking about his opponent. Then he takes the Purva-paksha and smashes his own arguments. This is the genius of the Bhashakaras, which is very dangerous for the beginner. Very risky, unless you are very firmly convinced about your own position. Swami Vivekananda, as you know, was a barrister himself. His father was a barrister, he was a lawyer. There was a big argument once with Nivedita. Nivedita herself was a very giant intellect. Nivedita couldn't argue with Swamiji. She said, Swamiji, you know what I say is right, but I just can't argue with you anymore. Swamiji smiled and said, all right. He took up his own arguments and smashed every one of them. And then you see, we belong to 7 generations of lawyers. That was Swamiji. So rather than going to the Bhashya and the Tika and then the Tippani on the Tika and so on, stick to the text first. Be thorough with the text. Find new meanings yourself through sadhana, through meditation, through devotion. And then you refer to the Bhashyas. Study the text, refer to the Bhashyas to get newer and more light. You can see just from the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita how Sri Krishna's character and personality are fully integrated with his teachings, and his teachings permeated and completely overpowered by his personality. Swami Vivekananda points this out. Sri Krishna's personality, what he taught in the Bhagavad Gita, was the embodiment of his own teachings, in which there are 3 important aspects which stand out in his personality and his teachings. One is, as is repeatedly mentioned today, is anasakti, absolute detachment. it appears he is absolutely attached to the gopis and so much his own kiss and kin. And he is passionate about winning the war, but he is absolutely not passionate at all. And always a smile on his lips. He is happy, willing to destroy his own Yaduvamsha. That which he builds with so much of care, like a child, with a smile on his lips and with joy in his heart, he is willing to destroy. For him, creation and destruction are mere play. But he has a purpose in everything which is purposeless. The beautiful contradictory coexistence of what we call purpose and purposelessness, about joyful abandon and a deep philosophical significance to everything, this combination permeates his entire teaching and personality if you carefully look at it. He was always joyful playing around. Until the end, he played around. He was the Leela Purushottama, always playing around. All that he did was only Leela. There is a story in the Bharata, very interesting story. It seems Sri Krishna went about asking everybody how to prevent the war, although he wanted the war to happen. He was mischievously asking everybody, how can we prevent the war from happening? There are two characters in the Mahabharata. One is Nakula, the other is Sahadeva. They are very great jnanis, but the role is very limited in the Mahabharata. It seems Sahadeva said, see, there are two things I should do in order to prevent the war. Then Sri Krishna said, what are they? Number one, Draupadi's hair should be removed. Draupadi ke mundan korte hai. Why? Because Draupadi promised, I will not tie my hair unless I have smeared my hair with the blood of Dushasana, then only I'll tie. So Draupadi's hair is creating all problems. Remove the hair from Draupadi's head. Second is, Sri Krishna, you should be jailed, put in jail. If you are allowed to roam about, war will happen. Sri Krishna, it seems, smiled and said, the first is very easy to do. Call a barber, it is done. But is there anybody in the 14 worlds, Chaturdasha Bhuvana, who can jail me and arrest me? It seems Nakula said, oh Lord, are you willing to take the challenge? Then he sat in meditation, put Sri Krishna in his heart, and tied him hands and feet with the soft cord of love. Sri Krishna, it is recorded, with folded palms he said, please release me, I accept defeat. There the famous sentence which he makes, Aham bhakta paradhino aswatantraiva. I am the paradhina, I am swadhina, I am swatantra, I am free, nitya shuddha mukta swarupa, ajopi sannabhya atma bhutanam ishvaropi san, etc. But I am paradhina, I am a slave to the devotees. This is a remarkable aspect of all the avatars. Compare it with Sri Ramakrishna's life. Sri Ramakrishna is lying down, desperately ill to the outside world, although Swami Turiyanandaji went and said, I don't see that you are unhappy, you are full of joy. Sri Ramakrishna was slightly irritated, showed a sign of irritation. So, কি বলছিস রে, আমি এত যন্ত্রণায় চটপট করছি, না আমি দেখতে পাচ্ছি আপনি বেশ আছেন। Then he smiled and শালা ধরে ফেলেছে. This rascal has found me out. So they are full of joy, but they have come down to act the Leela, the part of the Leela. Sri Ramakrishna says, calls his devotees, his disciples, তোরা যদি বলিস শরীরটা ছেড়ে দিই, আর পারছি না, খুব কষ্ট হচ্ছে। তোরা যদি অনুমতি দিস তাহলে শরীরটা ছেড়ে দেব। He is begging of his own devotees and disciples permission to leave his body. Nitya Shuddha Mukta Swabhava Swatantra, he is bound by the cord of love. He himself says, তোরা আমাকে সেবা দিয়ে, ভালোবাসা দিয়ে, শ্রদ্ধা দিয়ে এমন বেঁধে রেখেছিস, শরীর ছাড়তে পারছি না। যখন ভাবি রাস্তায় রাস্তায় তোরা কেঁদে কেঁদে বেড়াবি, তখন আর শরীর ছাড়তে ইচ্ছা করে না। You have bound me with your love, with your affection, with your seva, with your care. So I just can't get out of this love, this divine love. And when I think of you, disciples, roaming around the streets, crying and weeping for my loss, then I feel I shouldn't go. You please permit me to go. That is the language used there. So all the avatars can be bound only by the supreme love, and they are happy to be bound by love. This is a secret we should know. The avatara comes down to the world in order to teach mankind love of God, as Swami Sri Ramakrishna said in the Kathamrita, and happily to be bound by the love of the devotee. And God's love for the devotee, God's love for the disciple is much more than the disciple, the devotee's love for God. How much can you and I love God? Do we have this capacity? Everybody says you should love God. What? I don't know anything about God. I don't know where He is. He is sitting there, He doesn't talk to you anymore. And then you are so full of sorrow, you go and cry, He simply smiles at you all the time. What kind of God is He? Then you get picked up with Him. I cry to you, I pray to you, nothing is happening to me. This is the experience of many sadhakas, including you and I. We have been crying and praying and meditating and doing sadhana and working for you for years upon years, decades upon decades. You do nothing to us. Is it the way you treat us? The avatara, being very intelligent and mischievous, he catches hold of all of us and puts us here, and then runs about to catch newer people. I am not saying this, is mother's statement. Mother was used to prepare two kinds of pan, beetle. One kind of pan with some kind of cardamom and fragrant things, very tasty and sweet. The other kind of pan beetle, which is just the ordinary. So somebody asked, Mother, why do you prepare two kinds? You see, this sweet and fragrant ones are for the devotees, and this ordinary one is for Thakur. Why? Anyway, he is ours. Where can he go? But these devotees, we have to catch them through all this. The secret is, the moment you become a brahmachari and a sannyasi, the Lord leaves you to catch new brahmacharis from outside. That's why the brahmachari always tell the Lord, oh Lord, we come, you enticed me, you brought me here, and you said, come to Belur Math, so much of joy, and I'll give you eternal joy, etc. I've come and crying here for 30, 40 years, nothing is happening. Where are you? Wait. He is now busy catching new people. Anyway, we are here, we can't go. He knows we can't go, because the charm is so much that even if we get picked, you can't go anywhere. You know the story of Swami Vivekananda, how he had to vomit blood because somebody cursed him, a fakir in Kashmir. Then Swamiji was very much picked. He came to Sharada Devi and said, Mother, that fakir cursed me and your Thakur couldn't take care of me. Then Mother intelligently said, you see, Thakur vidya manten, তিনি কোনোটাই নষ্ট করতে আসেনি, সেটা একটা বিদ্যা, that's already a kind of knowledge. Thakur didn't come to, I am vomiting blood and you talk about Thakur's universality. Then Swamiji couldn't take it. No, আমি তো মানতে চাই না. Then Mother smiled and said, where can you go? You are bound here. তোমার টিকিটা কেন বাঁধা আছে, যাবে কর. So all your tikis are bound here. Unfortunately, we cut our tikis during sannyasa just to escape, but even now we are caught. So the secret of the avatara is, the charm of the avatara is so much that you can't escape him. And he charms you into his fold, and only request, plea, prayer which he has to the devotee, not the devotee's prayer to God, God's prayer to the devotee. Just think of me to be devoted to me. I just want to point out to you the whole underlying current in the Bhagavad Gita, apart from the jnana, bhakti, the samanvaya, the detachment and all kinds of teachings. The whole secret of the Bhagavad Gita is the Lord has come down as an avatara, Krishna has come down as avatara, somehow or other be attached to me and I will save you. You can see it running through from beginning to end. He talks about all kinds of things. Again and again he'll go back. And like Swami Vivekananda, whatever subject he takes up, he'll take it to the extreme. Tapasvipyodhiko yogi, jnanibhyopi batodhika, karmabhyachadhiko yogi, tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. When he talks about yoga, karma, dhyana, everything is secondary. Yoga is the supreme. Then he will say, yoginam api sarvesham madgate nantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo mata. Hari, what kind of yogi you can be? See, elaborately discuss Sucho deshe pratisthapya stiram asanam atmana natyuchartam natinitam, etc., etc. So sit straight and do this and do that, blow through your nose, mano hridiniruddhacha, all kinds of things you do. But personally I tell you, come nearer me. I have come as the avatar, be devoted to me, you are the greatest yogi, go. You can see that happening every time. 5th chapter. He talks about sannyasa, karma sannyasa, the renunciation of karma. Ends by saying, Bhoktaram yajnatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. What can you do about it? Come to me, some more realize me. Even if you can't realize me, be devoted to me. I tell the Lord, you see, you are putting all, how is it easy to constantly remember you? He says in the Bhagavad Gita, this statement, this phrase occurs several times in the Gita, yukta. Yukta means focused. Be focused to me. Focus upon me. Satata yukta, nitya yukta, yukta tama, yukta. You tell the Lord, oh Lord, it's not so easy. How can be so focused to you? Can't you do this much? Clap your hands and sing of my glory. That much clapping I can do, singing also I can do, but I can't think of you. Is it all right? Suppose I clap and sing without thinking of you, or even that is all right. Try it. Don't do it alone. Take a group of people. Instead of talking about worldly matters, instead of talking about useless things, talk about me. Sing about my glory. And through that process, try as much as possible to fix your mind upon me and find joy in this. Can you do it? That's much I can try, perhaps. 10 people sitting together, clapping their hands and singing for joy. Then suddenly, Lord sends a packet, small packet. Open that packet, there's a small key there. It is in the Buddha Yoga packet, the key to the spiritual mansion. Very simple method. 10-9, 10-10. You can refer to the 10th chapter, 9th verse and 10th verse. Macchitta madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. That's all, very simple. Macchitta madgata prana. Madgata prana may not be easy. At least you have put your mind on him, otherwise we wouldn't be here. Bodhayanta parasparam, talking to one another about the Lord. Kathayantascha mam nityam, talking constantly about me and finding delight in it. Why is it not possible for us now? Because we are delighting in something which is other than God. The small practice is given in the Gita, very simple practice. Delight in me, delight in talking about God, delight in talking about spiritual matters, rather than delighting in something which is other than spiritual. Why is it that we are caught up in that which is not spiritual? For the simple reason we find joy in it. Why do we find joy in it? The great scriptures, the Vedas say, because the faculty of the Medha has not come to you. Once the Medha faculty awakens in you, which is called the Dhi in the Gayatri Mantra, the Medha, the Shraddha, or the Prajna in the Yoga Sutra, when that is slightly awakened in you, then you will find that spiritual matters attract you much more than non-spiritual matters. You just feel that you are not interested in anything else other than God. Tvaya jushta nudamana duruktaan brahadvadema vidathe suvira Tvaya jushta rishirbhavati devi Tvaya brahma gatashri rutatvaya. You have chanted this. Oh Medha Devi, when you come to me, suddenly a transformation takes place within me. I have been delighting in non-spiritual talk, worldly talk so far. Now suddenly I find that talk about the worldly matters doesn't satisfy me, doesn't give me joy anymore. I want to talk about great things, Brihadvadema, big things. Things about God, things about spirituality, about Brahman. With whom? With my disciples, with my companions. Vidate Suviraha, heroic sons and disciples, I'll talk only about you. When that happens, your job ends there. You don't have to do anything further. So the Lord has come to make spiritual life, religion extremely simple. Religious life is so simple, so straightforward, and the requirements are so very, very few. When the Lord descends upon the earth, particularly the manifestations of Ramakrishna's glory, which you find now, this is, he himself acknowledges in the Gospel of Ramakrishna, this is the highest and the most glorious manifestation because the manifestation through Sattva, Sattvic Aishwarya. So when the Lord comes, he makes religion so simple and the requirements are also extremely simple. If you read the Vedanta scriptures and so on, Sadhana Chatushtaya, none of us will be here. Even those who teach Vedanta, at the gate you will be asked, hey, where do you want to go? I want to study Vedanta. Stop. Nitya Vastu Viveka? Cross. No, nothing. Ihamutra Phalabhoga Viraga? Not much. Shat Sampati, 0. Mumukshutta, 2%. Go. You can't enter. The Lord comes and says, Hari, he may not have all that, it doesn't matter. Somehow he wants to think of me, he has a group of people who sings about me, and then the Lord sends, he says, you don't have to ask the Lord, your job is over. Then what happens? Tesham satada yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam. Pritipurvakam bhajatam, look at this word. Pritipurvakam, some love, some devotion, some affection to the Lord. Bhajatam, you serve him, you worship him. Then the Lord himself comes to your doorstep, hey, knocks at your door. Oh, you are talking about me, you are singing about me, you are so delighted. Come on, take this. Dadami, he gives. What does he give? Buddhi yogam tam. He gives a buddhi yoga. Then he says, open this door. This is the key to this mansion of spirituality in which I reside. Yena mam upayanti. It's a very tall claim by the Lord. I give you the simple key which opens the door to the mansion in which I reside. It is so simple. He makes religion and spirituality so simple, and all that he asks for is some little devotion. He offers so many things. What can he offer to the Lord? We said we want to offer everything to the Lord. What can you offer to the Lord which is not his? Whatever you offer is his. You are offering to the Lord what is his. What can you offer? You remember the story? There was a gardener who was looking at the mango garden of a very rich person. Then one day he found beautiful, delicious mangoes. Then he plucked all of them and put them in a basket and went to the owner of the garden and said, Prabhu, apnar jona yeshab niye esechi. Whose mangoes are they? Those mangoes belong to the owner, not to this Mali. But the owner is so delighted. Why? Not because he's offering the mangoes. Mangoes belong to him. He knows it. But because of the love with which this poor Mali gardener has brought it there. So the Lord says, what can you give me? You can't give me anything which is not mine. All right. Give me one tulsi leaf or bell leaf. So he says, tulsi leaf, you see, Belurmat, very difficult to pluck anything now. Immediately they were right. Don't pluck anything. Oh. Then flowers, impossible. Then fruits are so costly. Where do I get fruits? Some water can you give me? That I can give you. From the tap, is it all right for you? Or is it already? From the Ganges also you can give. But the condition is, you should give it with some bhakti and love as an offering. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhaktyupahritam ashnami prayatatmana. Look at the word used. He could have used the word grinhami. The chandas would have been perfect. But he chooses to use the word ashnami, that means I physically eat it. Because it has been given to you, I devour it. Sri Ramakrishna says in the gospel, that which is offered with love, like a cow eating the fodder, the oil cake, the Lord devours it because it is smeared with the love of the devotee. Ashnami prayatatmanaha. And you know the Lord, when He comes down as the Avatara, because of His great compassion, He promises many things and gets into trouble. Do you know the stories? Like the Bhasmasura, for example. The Bhasmasura prayed to the Lord Shiva, whosoever heads I touch, he should be burnt to ashes. Then Ashutosha said, Tathastu. Then he wanted to test it on Shiva himself. So Shiva is running, this fellow is running behind him to touch his head. So the Lord, because of his excessive love for the devotee, gives boons and gets into trouble. Sri Krishna got into trouble. You know the story? Ashnami prayatatmana, I eat them. So many kings, rajas and maharajas were inviting Sri Krishna for a very sumptuous feast. He didn't accept any of them. Uninvited, he went to Vidura's house. Vidura was a very poor Brahmin. He didn't have anything to offer. And Vidura was so much overwhelmed by the Lord's visit. He didn't know what to do. He had some bananas, very old, somewhat too ripe bananas. Then, out of love for the Lord, he took those bananas, peeled the skin, and of excessive devotion, overwhelmed, he didn't know what to do. Kim kartavya vimudha, as we say. He was offering the skin and throwing off the fruit. Because Lord has promised in the Gita, Ashnami, he had to eat the skin. We don't know later on how the stomach was upset. But because he has promised there, Ashnami, physically he eats it. These are the promises which is made in the Gita. Somehow you come to me, somehow you think of me. So many different varieties of sadhana he gives in the Gita. How many varieties you can't say. In fact, the Gita there are certain verses, I refer to you particularly to 13:29 and 14:19. You just have a look at them. Swami Vivekananda once said, even if a person pursues science per se, purely materialistically, he also will ultimately come to religion and spirituality. I never could accept it or understand it, because we have been always trained in the Advaita that Atma and Anatma are Tamah Prakasha with Vriddha Swabhava. These can never meet. Chit Jada Granthi and so on. But here is the prophet of the modern age, Swami Vivekananda, claiming that pure pursuit of science also will ultimately lead you to the same goal, same unity. One insight I got in these two verses of the Gita, 13:29 for example, Prakrityaiva cha karmani kriyamanani sarvasha yappashyati tathatmanam akartaram sapashyati. If a person clearly sees, a scientist clearly knows it is Prakriti which is doing everything. Prakriti, the materialistic nature, that is moving the whole universe. Prakrityaiva cha karmani kriyamanani sarvasha. All action, all movement is done by Prakriti only. Prakritya eva, only by Prakriti. Yah pashyati tatha. A person who can clearly, absolutely, unambiguously, without a least doubt, can see that Prakriti is doing everything. What happens to such a person? Atmanam akartaram sapashyati. Immediately it dawns upon him, as it were, that the Atman is akarta. That means all action is attributed to Prakriti and the Atman is akarta. So pursue even the materialistic science in the Sankhya, for example, you go to the end of Prakriti. Then from there's a kind of a quantum leap into Atman, and you are catapulted to your spiritual vision in which you see that Prakriti is doing everything, I am completely an akarta, I am the infinite self. 14:19, Nanyam gunebhyak kartaram yada drashtanupashyati gunebhyascha param veti madbhavam sodhigacchati. Talking about the Triguna in the 14th chapter, Gunatraya Vibhaga. Then finally he says, Anyam gunebhyak kartaram yada drashtanupashyati. When a seeker can clearly see that it is only Trigunas which are acting, all the kartrutva, the sense of agency is only for the Triguna. Guna gunesha vartanta iti matva na sajjate. You can see in the Gita the idea, Sankhyan idea, interpenetrating from the beginning to end, from the second chapter, third chapter, till the end. Anyam gunebhyak kartaram na pashyati, anupashyati. A person, if he sees, there is nothing except the Trigunas which are acting, gunebhyascha param vetti. Then from there on, he is as it were catapulted or like a booster rocket. He is boosted onto a different level in which gunebhyascha param vetti. He goes beyond the gunas. Go to the end of the gunas, the end of the tesser of the gunas, and you find that the Trigunas are acting and nothing else is the agent for action. So what I am trying to say is, such a wealth of sadhana which is prescribed in the Gita, you can take up any type of idea and pursue it sincerely. And again you will come back to this old tune. You may do all that, but the easiest and the best way is to somehow be devoted to me, who is the Avatirana Bhagavan. All the avatars have always mentioned this. And like Swami Vivekananda, once again you can see the parallel, the emphasis on karma as karma yoga. The whole game started with Arjuna refusing to fight. You know the story. The first chapter, Arjuna was not at all confused. Arjuna got confused only after coming to the battlefield. When he started from home to fight the war, he was full of valor, full of courage, full of confidence, full of enthusiasm. You can see it in the first chapter. He tells Sri Krishna was the humble Sarathi, the driver of the car. Then he says, "Oh, Archuta, take my chariot and station it in between these two armies. Senayor, Ubhayor, Madhye, Ratam Sthapayame, Achyuta." Look at the tone. Yavadetan niriksheham ye tatra samagataha dharta rashtrasya durbuddhehe yuddhe prechigirshavaha. I want to know who are the people, the foolish people who have come here to die in my hands. Yavadetan niriksheham, as long as I have not fully seen them, station senayor ubhayor madhye, in between the two armies. Once again, the mischief of Sri Krishna you can see here. Read the text. Takes the chariot. He has to station in between these two armies. He could have stationed it anywhere. Very mischievously he said, Bhishma Drona Pramukhata Sarvesham cha Mahikshitam. Simply took the chariot and stationed it exactly in front of Bhishma and Drona. Arjuna started crumbling. You can see, read the text, it's so interesting. Then he says, Swajanam ki gatam bhatva sukhina syama madhava. Swajana. The moment the idea Swajana came into him, Arjuna was slowly overwhelmed by moha. Shankaracharya mentions this. Aham yesham mama yete iti bhranti pratyaya nimitta. Aham yesham, I am these people, I am theirs. And mama yete, these people are mine. The moment this idea of aham and mama came to him, this bhranti pratyaya, immediately shoka and moha overwhelmed him. When shoka and moha overwhelm a person, what happens? Shankara says, swadharma parityagaha, he gives his own swadharma, and then pratishiddha sevasya, he takes up something which is prohibited for him. Then the only medicine for shoka moha is atma jnana, and therefore Sri Bhagavan Uvacha Ashocha Nushochastvam iti. So interestingly develops the whole thing. Swajanam, at least 4 or 5 times it occurs in the first chapter. Swajanam hi katam matva sukhina syama madhava. So Sri Krishna traces the whole thing to aham and mama. Arjuna wanted to give up work, karma, because work is productive of bondage. Karma will give me karma bandhana. Karma bandhana will put me in bondage and sorrow, and therefore I want freedom, I will give up work. Sri Krishna said, is karma putting you in bondage? Or the feeling that I am doing the work is responsible for bondage? Very sharply he makes a distinction between karma, tyaga, on the one hand, and the other hand, karma asakti tyaga, karma phalat tyaga, and kartrutva tyaga. The tyaga trayam. Why do you want to give up work? Even if you try to give up work, you can't give up work. Nihi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtat akarmakrit karyate hi avashak karma yasarva prakriti jair gunaihi. In spite of yourself, you have to do it because prakriti will make you do it. So you can't give up work. So work doesn't bind you, but attachment to work, attachment to the phala, fruits of work, and the feeling that I am doing the work, which is what binds you. The aham and the mama. From the beginning of the Gita to the last chapter, ahankara, mamakara. You can see the original. Once again, read the original text. Second chapter. Towards the end, this was referred to by some brahmachari in the morning. When we were talking about Anvaya and Vitireka in the Siddhapragya. But I'll give you a slightly different insight. Go to the second chapter, last towards the end. You can refer to there is a very famous verse which says, don't try to get rid of desires. Hey, what kind of peculiar teaching is it? We say we should be desireless, we should give up desire. God says, no, don't give up desires. Allow all desires to come and merge in you, but nothing will happen to you. How? You are like the infinite ocean. So many rivers empty themselves into the ocean, but the ocean remains absolutely unaffected. So let all the desires come and empty themselves into you, and the sting of those desires will completely go because you are that infinite bliss, infinite ocean. Apuryamana machala pradishtam samudram apapravishanti yadvat tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarvesa shantimapnotina kamakami. Remember the story of Swami Vivekananda? There is a mosquito which was sitting on the horn of a bull. The mosquito was constantly biting the bull at the horn, and after a very long time, its conscience pricked him. He said, Mr. Bull, I'm so sorry I'm troubling you. Let me go away now. The bull looked at it and said, oh, you are here, I never noticed you. Come and stay on my horn with your entire family for as long as you like. What can you do to me? Swamiji is very fond of this idea. Never cry bitterly and say, oh, I am so... Many of us, the sadhakas, come and say, oh, my mind is lustful, my mind is angry, my mind is full of desires. Come desires, as much of lust, as much of anger, as much of evil thoughts, let them come. What can you do to me? I am that infinite self. There's one point of view. Because I am not the mind anyway. Rejoice at them. Oh, yesterday I had such a bad feeling. Oh, it was a wonderful feeling. Because I am not the mind anyway. Just like you're seeing a drama. Mosquito is sitting on the horn of a bull, biting, nothing happens to me. Identify yourself with the infinite ocean. Swami Vivekananda said in the Inspired Talks, look at the ocean, not the wave. We think ourselves to be small bubbles here and there, small drops. And then we are so much worried about clinging to a little individuality. I am this, I am that, I am a sadhaka, I am a sadhu, I should do this, I should be very careful about myself. But you are the infinite ocean. What is there to be worried about? Remember that story Swamiji gave to Emma Khalve. Emma Khalve was such a great celebrity in those times. As usual with celebrities, she was so depressed, so upset. Psychologically broke. Enters Swami Vivekananda's study room. Swamiji doesn't even look at her. Then even without looking at her, says, oh my child, what a terrible atmosphere you have brought with you. Calm down, calm down. She sat down. Swamiji talked to that lady about some of the innermost secrets which she hadn't shared with anybody. Then she was flabbergasted, confused, confounded. Swamiji, did anybody talk to you about me? Swamiji smiled and said, is it necessary? I can read you like an open book. Calm down, my child. Get well. Your health requires it. Your art requires it. Then he talked to her about the infinite dimension of her personality, how she was not the small, limited personality encased in a small body and mind. But the power of Swamiji's personality and words and the spiritual wisdom which his lips spoke, the lady was simply carried. But she became terribly afraid. Swamiji, what will happen to me? I'll get lost. Then Swamiji smiled and said, you Westerners always worried about individuality. You are not individuals yet. You will be when you become universal. Then he told her a story. A water drop was falling into the ocean. The drops was crying. The ocean asked it, my child, why are you crying? Oh, I am going to lose my individuality as a drop. The ocean said, my child, you are not going to lose your individuality as a drop. You are going to regain your individuality as the ocean. You were me, you were with me, and somehow you escaped and went up. You are coming back and joining your billions and trillions of brothers and sisters, the drops like you. Apuryamana achala pratishtham samudram apapravishandayadvat. Let anything come and join you are that infinite self. The same tone which is found in the Ashtavakra Samhita, which was given by Sri Ramakrishna to Swamiji very secretly. Mayyanantamaham bodho ascharya jiva vichaya udyanti ghranti khelanti pravishanti svabhavataha. I am that infinite ocean in which waves and waves of so many worlds and jivas are rising and falling. What is it to me? I am that infinite ocean. Swamiji, in one of the loftiest of Advaitic moods, once told his audience in the West, never forget the glory of human nature. Buddhas and Christs are but the waves of the infinite ocean which I am. He struck his chest like that. That is one aspect of it. The very next shloka says, put it in the Vyatireki, Vihaya kaman yas sarvan puvams charati nuspraha nirmamo nirahankarasya shantimadi gacchati. See, if this is too much for you, then you say, I am that infinite ocean, I should not risk it. Many of us are so much afraid. These avatars have no fear. Sri Ramakrishna says in the Gandhi, Kathamrita, Jnani bhoye torashe. Always is terribly afraid, but Vijnani is not afraid. The Vijnani is the Leela Sangi of the avatar. All of us are the playmates in the great Leela of Sri Ramakrishna. We should be afraid. But if you are afraid, then you say, no, I should give up all this. Vihaya kaman yasalvan. What should you give up? Nirmamo nirahankarasya shantimadi gacchati. Nirmamo nirahankaraha. Mamakara nahankara you give up. Go to the middle of the Gita, 12th chapter. Adveshta sarvabhutana maitra karuna evacha nirmamo nirahankara samadukha sukha kshami. Repetition of the same thing. Nirmamo nirahankara sama dukkha sukha kshami. In the Gita, the whole trend is samatva buddhi, anasakti and samanvaya. The whole trend you will see, and the burden of the whole thing, the main tune on which the entire thing is set, is that I am the avatarana Bhagavan, I am that incarnation, you come to me and I will save you. That is the most secret teaching and the most sacred teaching of the Gita, as Ramanuja points out. Nirmamo nirahankara samadukha sukha kshami. Then go to the last chapter. I'm just giving you glimpses from the beginning to the end how nirmamo nirahankara runs through the whole of the Gita. Ahankaram, last chapter, 18th chapter. Ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodham parigraham vimuccha nirmama shanto brahmabhujaya kalpate. Ahankara, aham, nirmama shantaha. Nirmama he gives up the mamakara. The I and the mind is the whole culprit. Give up the I and the mind, work is not the problem at all. Arjuna is confused that you should give up work. Karma is going to bind me, he is terribly afraid, and he wants to give up karma. The Bhagavan tells him, give up mamakara and ahankara. And give up the idea that I am doing. Then what is the attitude with which you should do work? He prescribes several attitudes. Suppose I am a jnani. I believe that I am that infinite self, I am the Atman. I am not the body, I am not the mind. Some people are temperamentally inclined to think of the Atman and the impersonal self. Take it. He gives there this paradigm of work. You can refer to shlokas 5, 8, 11 and 3:17. Take up 3:17, 3rd chapter, 17th verse. Who is fit for enunciation of work? Yastu atmaridare syad atmadraptasya manavah atmanyeva ja santushtatasya karyam na vidyate. For such a person who is completely absorbed in the self, who has realized himself as the supreme being, as the self, atmarati, atmatripta. These words, phrases are used in the Gita and the Upanishads always. Atma krida, atmarati kriya vanesha brahmavidam varishta. Look at this, the Mundaka Upanishad. Atma krida, atmarati, then he adds there kriyavan. What is the meaning? You don't know. Shankaracharya would swoon. Atma krida, atmarati, but kriyavan, but is fully active. He says he is brahmavidam varishta. A brahmavida person who is atma krida and atmarati, brahmavidam varishta is a person who is atma krida, atmarati, but full of action. Once again, you can see the parallel in the Gita. Last chapter. Go to the last chapter. Just now the verse I was referring to you. Ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodham parigraham vimuchya nirmama shanto brahmabhuyaya galpate brahmabhuta prasannatma nashochidana kankshati samas sarveshu bhuteshu madhubhaktim labhate param bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tatvata tato mam tatvato jnatva vishate tadanantaram. Swami Tapasyanji always used to emphasize this verse. The Gita doesn't talk about whether it is Advaita, whether it merges into him completely, whether it remains separate. He simply says what happened, what is the final realization. Vishate tadanantaram. Anantaram, thereafter, tad into it, Vishate, he merges. He enters into divine life. He becomes divine, enters into divine life, lives a life of godliness and divinity. Then he takes a turn there. Sarva karmanyapi sada kurvano madhyapasraya. Very enigmatic verse. Madhusudana Saraswati there says, I have to slightly differ from the great Acharya at this point. Compared to the great Acharya, I am only a pygmy, I am only a stupid ass. But I just can't exactly follow what the Shankara says. Sarva karmani apa sada kurvanaha. Look at the words. He does not say only spiritual karma, sarva karmani. He does not say only now, sada, always. He uses shanach pratyaya, kurvana, means continuing to do. Continuing to do at all times, all kinds of activity. After Vishate Dadanantaram, after attaining the highest knowledge. This can be explained only in the light of Sri Ramakrishna's teaching. After getting the highest realization of a jnani, he remains as a vijnani for the good of the world and engages himself for the good of everybody. Sarva karmanyapi sada kurvano madhyapasraya. So if you are a jnani, take the paradigm that you are that infinite self and you are not doing anything. Then 5th chapter, 8 to 11. Very famous verses. Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyeta tattvavid pashyan srinvan sprashan jagran nashnan gachan swapan shwasan pralapan visrajan grinhan unmishan nimishan napi indriyani indriyartheshu vartanta iti dharayan brahmanyadhaya karmani sangam dektva karotiya lipyatena sapapena patmapatra vyambhasa kayena manasa buddhya kevalairindrayairapi yogina karma kuruvanti sangam dektva atma shuddhaye. Naiva kinchit karomi, I am not doing anything. Then who is doing? Prakriti may be doing anything, I don't care. But he is doing everything apparently. Pashyan, Srinvan, Sprishan, Jagran, Nashnan, Gachan, Supan, Shasan. Somebody else is seeing him doing everything and then identifying himself with the body. He says, you are doing so many things. Jnani says, no, I am not doing anything. Naiva kanchit karomi. I am not aware that I am doing anything. Because I am that infinite self. You can take this paradigm. Suppose you say, see, I can't go up to that. I would rather think the Lord is doing everything. I am slightly devotional in temperament. Then Gita says, all right, come to 330. Third chapter, 30th verse. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasyadhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigatajvara. Very interesting verse. Swami Ranganathan is very fond of this. Yugatajvara, vigatajvara, yudhyasva, you fight, you act. You be extremely energetic. You be very active. But don't be feverish. Without any udvega or anxiety you do. Vigatajvara. All of us feverishly are active. Not that we accomplish anything. Like busy bodies, we run about like headless chickens here and there and think after a lot of running about we have accomplished something. Ultimately we accomplished nothing. The American Psychologists Association once conducted a survey and came out with a beautiful word for such people. It's called MAFA, M-A-F-A. Mistaking activity for accomplishment. Lot of activity you do and you mistake it for accomplishment. The Lord says nothing is accomplished there, only a lot of feverish, anxious work. Yudhyasva vigatajvaraha. You can go to the 18th chapter and refer to the Rajasic karma and Rajasic karta and so on. Kriyate bahulayasam tad rajasam udaharadam. Plenty of, so much of effort they will put. Excessive effort they will put and then make life miserable for everybody. Anubandham shayam himsam anapekshita paurusham mohadarabhyate karma yattat tamasamuchyate. Without even realizing how much of effort is involved there, how much of manpower is required, simply you start some work. Mohadarabhyate karma. For our life, particularly in the Ramakrishna order, 18th chapter, Rajasic, Tamasic and Sattvic, Karta, Karma, Dhriti, Buddhi, Jnana, there are about 7 of them, 7 into 3, 21 verses, are most vital. Whenever you feel something, immediately find out. Refer to the Gita. Is it Rajasic or Tamasic or Sattvic? Suddenly we feel like, some people say, no, ekana kichu hachana, and Uttarakesh chale jabo, dadao. What is that? Dukkha mitye viyat karma kaya klesha bhayatyajit. Uff, abar kuddave. No, I will meditate. Because dukkha mitya viyat karma kaya klesha bhayat. Because it's so troublesome to the body and it's so full of sorrow, I will rather meditate and do japa and sleep in the shrine rather than do any work. Kailashanandaji, when we were small boys, he used to very funnily say, job kora darkar, job kora darkar. Kena Maharaj? Ek number hocche bhalo vishram pawa jay. 2 number hocche spiritual image bade. Baba, kirakam job korche dekesho. 3 number hocche keu disturb korbe na. You should do a lot of japa. Why? There are 3 advantages. One is you will get plenty of rest. But don't snore. Naag naadeke sholte hai. Mangalarti te mota moti dekle baja jaye. And you will get plenty of rest. And you will have a spiritual image. And nobody will disturb you. So the Bhagavan clearly says, Kaya klesha bhayattaje sakritva rajasam tyagam naivatyaga phalam labhet. Mai sanyasya karmani sarva karmani sanyasya adhyatma chetasa. Every word, adhyatma chetasa. By spiritual mind which is spiritually oriented. Yudhyasva vigatajvaraha. Or suppose you say, I don't believe in devotion, I don't believe in Atman, etc. I am a scientist. I am a purely materialistic person. Prakriti is doing everything. I only believe in nature's laws. Then the Lord will say, go to 3rd chapter, 27th verse. Then suppose you say, I am a scientist, then he will say, come here. Hey, take him to 327. So all the Gita, so many rooms are there. 700 rooms. Then 3rd floor, 27th room. Go. 327. Prakriti kriyamanani gunek karmani sarvasha ahankara vimudhatma karta himiti manyate. What's that? Prakriti kriyamanani gunek karmani sarvasha. So Prakriti is doing everything, I am not doing anything. This is one more item which Bhagavan has introduced in the Gita, apart from the jnana and bhakti. Normally, in the other scriptures we find jnana-oriented work or bhakti-oriented work. Here the Bhagavan has taken out the paradigm of either bhakti or jnana for people in the modern times, for example. Simply you take Prakriti. Prakriti is doing one thing and then you be happy about it. Then I found one more, Swamiji's idea of the work for work's sake. I was looking for it in the Gita and I found one verse, 3rd floor, 9th room, 3-9. Yajñarthat karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha. All work is minding except that kind of work which is done for the sake of yajna. Yajna is this cosmic cycle. In the Gita 3rd chapter he describes it. Evam pravartitam chakram nanuvartayati akhayurundraya ramo mokham partha sajivati. This cosmic cycle is going on. Annad bhavanti bhutani, parjanyad anna sambhava, etc., etc. The whole thing is a cosmic cycle which is going on according to nature's laws. The moment you are born into this world, per se you have to participate in this cosmic cycle. So the participation in the cosmic cycle as a willing participant will release you from the bondage of work. Yajñarthat karmanonyatra. If you are bhakti oriented, they will interpret it as Yajño vai Vishnuhu. Yajna is actually Vishnu, Yajna is Bhagavan, Yajna is Lord, etc. But if you don't take that point of view, simply take Yajna to be a cosmic cycle governed by certain natural laws, and as a willing participant in this cosmic cycle, per se you were pushed into this world, and then I observe this cosmic cycle and I am willing to participate in this as a joyful participant. Then you will be released from this bondage. So these 4 important paradigms are given to you. And as I said, repeatedly he comes back to his Avatirana Bhagavan. And in the last chapter, he gives you a very practical hints about how to achieve the supreme goal of life, which comes very close to the Ramakrishna ideal. So I'll just mention this and stop. You know, Swami Vivekananda once made a very powerful statement. Tyag or Sheva, it is Jati Adarsho. Renunciation and service are 2 great national ideals of India. Intensify them in these 2 channels and the rest will take care of itself. So when you study this sentence, how Swamiji must have been unconsciously influenced by the Bhagavad Gita and the great scriptures. Tyaga seva, renunciation and service, are yajna and dana. In the last chapter you may remember, Arjuna asks about tyaga and sannyasa, and the Bhagavan says, some people say all work should be given up, but some people say yajna dana tapakarma natyajyam iti cha apare. Nischayam srunume tatra tyago hi bharadarshava, etc. He says, Yajnadana tavakarma pavanani manishinam. My definite confirmed view is that yajna, dana and karma natyajyam, they should not be given up because pavanani manishinam. These 3 are highly purifying. Think of Sri Krishna's teaching in the Bhagavad Gita and think of the maturity which he brings to bear upon each of the verses as he goes along, and think of his very last teaching in the last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, saying and swearing, Nischitam matam uttamam. He says, Nischitam uttamam. This is my supreme teaching. This is the definite, unambiguous declaration which I am making. What is that? Yajnadana tapakarma natyajyam. Yajnana tapakarma pavanani manishinam. Compare it with Swamiji. Renunciation and service are the great ideals. Renunciation, yajna, sacrifice. Dana, service, charity, giving, sharing. Intensification is the tapasya. Renunciation and service are 2 great national ideals. Intensify them, that is the tapasya. Swamiji based his entire the Ramakrishna Mission ideology on this perhaps. On the one hand, you should be renouncing what? Renouncing your little self. Think of Swamiji's teaching when he was going to the West for the second time. Sannyasa is ideal in practice. Swamiji said, Sannyasa I will define as a love of death. You die. You die to what? You die to your little self. This little self, me and mine, you completely die to that. Can you die every moment to this little I with which you cling? A sannyasin lives a life of continuous death so that he can continuously be reborn. That is why sannyasin is called, after Parameshwara Mahadeva, Sadyojata. Sadyojata, a person is just born now. You can't be born now if you have not been dying the previous moment. You die this moment so that you can be born this moment. Sadyojata, every moment is a moment of continuous rebirth and self-renewal so that your previous self is continuously dying. So Swamiji defines the love of death, sannyasa, renunciation, and that should manifest in service. How? 4 kinds of dana. Swamiji's entire scheme is based upon this Chaturvidha dana. Annadana, Pranadana, Vidyadana and Jnanadana. The whole mission's ideal. Annadana, relief, rehabilitation, all the physical needs. Pranadana, hospitals, dispensaries, health, hygiene and so on. Vidyadana, school, college, university, secular education. Then Jnanadana, the mantra diksha, then the bhajan, temples, by which people may get spiritual knowledge. So give these 4 kinds of dana and do them with tremendous intensity. Yajnadana tapakarma pavanani manishanam. Then this has to be done. The practice, the method is, as you know, Swamiji said, by the combination and the harmony of the 4 yogas. The Gita, from beginning to end, is a text of harmony. How many different kinds of ideas which existed at that time in the ancient Hinduism, and so many different ideas which were prevalent at that time, he put them all together and made a wonderful synthesis and harmony. That's why the Gita calls every one of them as yoga. Every moment is a moment of yoga. Every thought, every predilection of the human mind is a kind of yoga. And the jnana and bhakti, which are proverbially considered to be 2 different paradigms, are punched and merged into one by the genius of Sri Krishna, by redefining bhakti in the beginning and the bhakti as the end, as the culmination of jnana. I'll give you 2 examples. Refer to 14:26. 14th chapter, 26th verse. Last but one verse. Mam chayo avvibhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityetan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. Very interesting verse. A person who worships me with avvibhicharini bhakti, unswerving devotion, such a person becomes eligible for brahmagyana. Remember Sri Ramakrishna's statement? Amar ma brahmagyano diben. Go to the Divine Mother, have devotion to her. Mother reveals herself to you. Mother also hands over brahmagyana also to you. Jnana can be obtained, brahmagyana can be obtained through devotion to the Saguna Brahman. Sagunan samatityetan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. Go to the last chapter. 18, 52, 53, 54, 55. What I just now chanted. Vivikta sevi laghvashi yatava kayamanasa dhyana yoga paro nityam vairagyam samupasritaha. The usual kinds of sadhanas. He lives alone, eats less, doesn't talk to anybody, then meditates, then is endowed with vairagya. Ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodham parigraham vimuchya nirmama shanto brahmabhuyaya kalpate. Then attains to Brahman. Then what happens to him? It doesn't stop there. Look at Ramakrishna's idea of Vijnana. After Brahmagyana, Brahmabhuta prasannatma nashochitana kankshati samas sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param. He attains to parabhakti. After attaining Brahmajnana, he retains a state against a state of mind. He gets supreme devotion to the Lord, which is beyond Brahmajnana, subsumed by Brahmajnana, in which Jnana and Bhakti coalesce as it were and become one. Jnanascha bhaktescha vishuddhamurtim vimurtimekam bhuvi Ramakrishna. Jnana and Bhakti merge into one, as if the sun and the moon come together. Madhbhaktim labhate param. What happens by that? Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tatvatah. Through this parabhakti, he knows me, the avatara, in its true sense. This is the acme of all realization, according to the Gita, to be able to intuitively and completely understand the avatirana Bhagavan. Not the Saguna Brahman or the Nirguna Brahman, but the avatara, which is the most difficult to comprehend. The devotion to the avatara is much more difficult than the devotion to even Saguna Brahman. That's why in the Virajananda, the famous hymn, he says, Ya satkadapi japayaga yoga bhoga saulabham durlabhantu Ramakrishna raga bhakti bhavanam. You may get all the things in the world, even in spiritual wealth, but durlabhantu Ramakrishna raga bhakti bhavanam avajanante mam mudha manushim tanumasratam parambhava majananto mabhuta maheshwaram. Repeatedly he tells Arjuna, you can see the same parallel in the Kathamrita. So Ramakrishna says, I have come as the avatara, come unto me, I will give everything to you. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tattvata tato mam tattvado jnatva vishate tadanantaram. Then he gets complete knowledge by realizing me. Then there are two more insights I'll give and stop. Gita's teaching is over. What does he say? Iti. Iti means finishing. Iti te jnanamakyatam guhyat guhyataram maya. Notice the word. Guhyataram. Guhya is secret. Guhyatara is greater secret. He uses the word tara. Vimarsheta yatechasi tatha kuru. Reflect upon this carefully, think about it, do what you want. Then he says, Sarva guhya tamam bhuya srunume paramam vacha. As if it is not part of Gita teaching. It appears, I have finished the Gita teaching by saying, Iti te jnanamakyatam. I have told you the Gita teaching. That is guhya tara. I am now going to give you further teaching which is the most secret. Guhya tamam. Why? Ishtosi me dridhamiti tato vakshyamite hidam. O Arjuna, you are so dear to me, you are my sakha, and therefore to you alone I am going to give this very special teaching of the Gita. Just 3 places in the Gita, the word guhya tama occurs. Just you can make a note of this. Just think about all this. 9-1, 1520, 1864. 9-1. Idam tade guhyatamam pravakshyam janasoyave. Once again he is talking about the avatara. The whole of the 9th chapter, Rajavidya, Rajaguhya, is about the avatirana Bhagavan. It is not about bhakti to Sagana Brahman. It is bhakti to the avatar. 9-1. 1520. Once again the Purushottama Yoga about the avatirana Bhagavan. Iti te iti guhyatamam shastram. Guhyatamam shastram. 1864. Sarva guhyatamam bhuya srunume paramam vacha. What is that? 2 great shlokas, one of which occurs in the end of the 9th chapter also. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishya satyam te pratijane priyosime sarvadharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tva sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shucha. Ramanuja says that the Charama Shloka, there is the supreme shloka in the Gita. The whole of the Gita is based upon the secret that the avatirana Bhagavan has come, surrender to him, go on to think about him. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mayeva mana adhatsva yoyi buddhim niveshaya. Repeatedly he says, all of us has come to the feet of Sri Ramakrishna. He has come. Just focus your mind on him, think about him, talk about him, delight in him, and then he opens the door to salvation. This is the great secret of the Gita, which gives you at the very, very end to Arjuna, his very dear disciple and friend. The same teaching is given by all the avatars. Jesus the Christ said, "Come unto me, ye that are weary and heavy laden, and I will give thee rest." In the Ramayana, there is a story about Vibhishana Sharanagati. Vibhishana came to the Akasha Marga and staying there. Rama, being a democratic king, called a council of, immediately a council, a meeting. And then said, what should we do with the Vibhishana now? Many people said many things. Then Hanuman Mahavir, he said, even if Ravana comes this moment to ask for the being Sharanagati, you are bound to give him, that is your promise. Then the famous words that Rama uttered, Sakrideva prapannaya tavasmi iti yachate abhayam sarva bhutebhyo dadam etad vratam mama. Even once if somebody comes and tells me, tavasmi, I am yours, then abhayam sarva bhutebhyo dadami, I give abhaya to all people. Etad vratam mama, that is my promise, that is my vow. The Lord has vowed this, and the Lord has come down as the Avatirana Bhagavan, now as Ramakrishna, under whose feet we are now gathered. With this faith, and who is so dear to the Lord? Mat karmakran, mat paramo. Do work for the Lord, knowing that the Lord is the supreme. Madhubhakta sangavarjita nirvaira sarva bhuteshu yussamameti pandava. All the Bhashyakaras say this contains the essence of the Gita. Sarva Shastra Sangraha Bhutam, Sarva Gitartha Sangraha Bhutam. So think of him, constantly work for him, meditate upon him, sing his glory. Somehow or other, enakena prakarena, somehow keep your mind on the Lord and your life will become blessed. So let our lives become blessed by constantly meditating upon the Lord, think of him and share, talk about him. So I thank all of you and our principal and the senior Maharaj Swami Damodaranji and others, and all the brahmacharis here for having given me this blessed opportunity for this Vangmayi Puja. Thank you.